Welcome back to Roughly Estimated, where we're still deeply analysing the 100 metres sprinting over time, looking forwards, looking backwards, using AI, using spreadsheets, using models to see what we always see. Usain Bolt was the best, but stay with me because today's video is about the World Athletics Championships versus the Olympic Games. Who runs it better? Who runs it quicker? What do you need to do to win it? Now, the thing about the World Championships is that they started in 1983, so relatively recent. But having started off following its older cousin, the Olympic Games' view of the world to run once every 4 years, no great surprise, hundreds and hundreds of events at the Olympic Games. The World Championships, I believe, is a slightly smaller affair. They started running it every 2 years since 1991. So in Tokyo, by the way, world's greatest long jump in Tokyo ever. But now we get the World Championships and a look at the top, as a sort of the top, a major competition every 2 years. So if we're thinking about the men's 100 meter final, we've got 19 final observations, the last one being run in Hungary. And then this year, we're going to be having the finals in September in Japan, taking advantage of that of Tokyo's Olympic preparations. So the question is, since 1983, there or thereabouts, how do the World Championships compare with the Olympic finals? And we've gone deep here, so let's go shallow to begin with. So here's a shallow look. So firstly, the setup. I know everyone loves a spreadsheet on this channel. All three of you, thanks for joining. Thanks for staying. Thanks for loving spreadsheets. We've got going back to 1980. If it's in this data set, it'll be 10.1 seconds on a normal basis or better, and up to the present day. So lots of familiar names. Obviously, in the 82s, Calvin Smith, Lewis, Smith, blah, blah, blah. But that's the data set. And then tagged here is whether or not it was a non-championship or a championship event. And depending on the championship, you either get it's the World Championship final or it's the Olympic Championship final, or I consider it non-championship. One quick aside is that we've always got this trouble with Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, who I'm a massive fan of. We can have a no Ben or Ben, and in the end I decided to include Ben and also Carl Lewis in first position, and noting that the data set at some level gets pretty scrappy. You've got this guy, another amazing athlete. I'm a massive fan of Tyson Gay. One day, Tyson Gay, we're going to do a deep dive into your career. And just to note, he runs a brilliant Olympics in 2012, but it's not in the data set because, some doping allegations, some doping conviction in 2012, and that 9.8 is not in the data set. So this being roughly estimated, I think it's fair to say we can just scrap it all. So the question is, who runs it better? What do you have to do to win the Olympics versus the World Championship versus just what we consider a non-major championship? And at first look, and stay with me because this is not the whole story, position 1, 2 and 3, the Olympics is better, it's settled, and non-championship is obviously the least, and then the World Championships coming up behind. And this is the number of observations, so obviously something to consider there. Non-championship races appearing, as you'd expect, much more regularly in the data set versus just the 12 observations in there for the Olympic final and the 19 for the World Championships. But you see, we can use Jonas Murica's model and rebase everything for the gravitation of the Earth. No, for the athletic modeling. So we can work out how to rebase things for the wind and the altitude in the data set. And so guess what? I've done it so that now, if you see here, we have the regular time and then this thing called pre-rounded. That's the Murica time. So if we go and find Bolt's 9.58, you see it becomes a 9.62, and the reason for that is basically it had nearly a meter per second plus 0.9 of a meter per second wind behind it, and that's enough to shift the numbers. Tiny bit of altitude doesn't really affect things, whereas for example in Zurich, Lucerne, then you do get quite a shift due to the thinner air. That is the theory, and we're sticking with it. So with that in mind, now we can do a real deep dive on a rebased and fair basis, and now we see something different, and we can go and look at it rather beautifully. So once we've got all of this data in here, we can really look at it in a really, I think, very interesting way. And what we can do is we can cut it up by different athletes. So here's the big picture. Here's the big joke. So the World Championship, of course, possesses the world's greatest 100 meters individual. It also, as a point of fact, has a brilliant second place. That was Tyson Gay. All of these are rebased values. So here I did a video about this one. This was Bolt in Brussels 2008 in terrible conditions. He was into a 1.3 meters per second headwind. No advantage to altitude, terrible, cold, rainy night. Check out my video. That Bolt runs 977, which gets rounded down with the Miracle model to 97. We've got Blake here. His 969 gets rounded up to 97 because he was in Lucerne. Lucerne is at an altitude of 495 feet, and that's just enough to tip that 100th. So that just gives you an idea of what we're looking at. So here is the massive data on the non-championship running. And you can see here that we have the quartiles and medians. And now we have the World Championship here. And you can see that although the averages are the same, and it's probably no surprise because we do have that big skew there. Certainly we have... for the first position, I mean, but you can see that it's just slightly better at the Olympics. We've got the 998 as the median and a first quartile of 992, and it's first quartile 993 and 10 is the median. Third quartile 1005. What was it here? And 1004. There's very little in it. There's very little in it, and so. We could do this by year, and I've done that and looked at it. But I suddenly stumbled across this idea that we could look at the athletes going into 2025. Why don't we take a look? First, let's establish ourselves with athletes that were great when they needed to be great. So a classic athlete like that, I mean, it's obviously Bolt. I hate to say it, but, Usain Bolt... Let's take a look. He was always great, but his greatest hits were at the big championships here. World Championship there, Olympics here. By the way, something slightly interesting is that 2008 Olympics where Bolt runs the first 80 meters, then opens up his arms, his chest, 20 meters to go, or maybe it's 15 meters to go. Runs that 969. That stays as a 969. There was really no wind and really no altitude. They were in Beijing. And so that 969 is actually the second best run ever. And he did it while sort of waving his arms about. And he was... look at that. It's exactly 1 year before. That's the 16th of August, 2008. And exactly a year later, he runs the 958. So I think he's 21 here, nearly 22. His birthday's just days after this. And he's 22 there and nearly 23. So just to keep that in mind when we look at guys like Kishane, just how young Bolt was. And it reminds me, actually, this is a slight turn from where I was going to take this, but it reminds me, Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes here. This is Bob Hayes in 1962. And, I just got looking at this photo because, this guy was just other level. And Bob Hayes was born in 1942. So he is, but December 1942. So he's probably 19 in that photo. So in that photo here, family, 1962, that's a 19-year-old Bob Hayes. I did take the time to, so he ran a 10.06 in the 1964 Olympics. And that was on a cinder track, and people say on the inside lane it was worse. And I did a step count of it. I think he took 47 steps. I might put that on the screen. I've sort of diverted here, but back we go to the future. So here we are with the ability to look at careers split by championship times and non-championship times within this quite relatively small data set of runs under 10.1 seconds. So Bolt, you can see he really gets it for the top performances. Look at that one there. That's the Olympics in 2008. Here's the Olympics in 2012. Here is the Olympics in 2016. Here's the Olympics. This is the semi-final. That's the semi-final of 2008 Olympics. And here is the semi-final of the 2016 Olympics. And here, the semi-final of the 2012 Olympics. Everything rebased to the time. So that 958 becomes a 962. And this, these all, he really, you can see that his best stuff is generally for these events. So, all this to say, we can now contrast that with Asafa, who famously didn't do his best stuff when it counted most, unfortunately. And you can really see it in the data. Here's his best. That was his 972. On a rebased basis, it's 975. It's non-championship. It's at Lucerne. Very little wind, but Lucerne is at a good deal of altitude, as we mentioned with Blake. So you can see Asafa here. He just could not get it together for the World Championship. He did get that bronze there in the 2009 final. That was the world. That was Bolt running 958, Tyson Gay running 971, and in third place 984. For a bronze, you have to run 984 in that race. And really, overall, that race is why the World Championships does have this skew on the box. The averages are identical for first place, but overall, for consistency, the Olympics, you have to be a little bit better. However, having said that, we did have this amazing 2024, which Noah Lyles won. So let's look at Noah Lyles. And so here is Noah, and you can see that, he does really perform. This is his World Championship that he won in Budapest. That was the 2023. Obviously here, the Olympic final and the Olympic semi-final. And he really got it together. So what about Fred Curley? Here's Fred Curley. And so, you can see Fred, he shows up. He shows up when it matters. This is his win in the World Championships 2022. He was in just amazing form in 2022, as will probably be indicated here. It says 2022 there. His best ever is 2022. Look at that, 979. and on a rebased basis, it's also 979. Very little altitude and very little wind there. So look at that, 2022, 2022, 2022, when he wins the World Championship gold. So yeah, Curly, he does show up. Now, let's go through the field. Let's just go through the field. So we've done Lyle's, Kishane. So Kishane, we don't have too much data. No World Championships yet. This will be his first this year. We can see, you know, it's probably just not enough data here, but in terms of excellence of runs, look at that. He's got a whole bunch rebased to 987, look. And really, that is pretty amazing. I mean, that is very exciting. Look at that, 16th of September, 2nd of September, 27th of June, and 28th of June. I mean, yeah, I mean, so looking at that, I mean, that is amazing. It was amazing consistency, which surprises me. And then this was his 977 that he ran to win the Jamaican trials, and he held off a fantastic Oblique Seville, which leads us to Oblique. Let's go to Oblique. How are you doing, Oblique? Now interesting here. Now that's the semi-final, you see. So it says it's in the Olympics. So I do count semi-finals and finals. So in the semi-final, he ran 984. In the final, he really gave up because he was so run out of it, and that's here. That's here. 991 rebased to 996. So that's Oblique. So Oblique. Yeah, he, you know, no question, his very best here was leading up. His very best, that's 2024, 2023. So his very best on a rebase is, yeah, so that was it in the Olympic semis. I mean, Oblique Seville, he could really be, look at that, that's 987, 987, 987, 986, 985, 984 on a rebased basis. Now, something interesting, if we go to the full data set, I think this probably doesn't get enough call out. So, obviously, turning our eye to the Olympics here, Bolt, but can you guess who's next in terms of the Olympics? Who did it? Who's the next best? I.e., that dot there, here, it's Jacobs. So Jacobs really pulled it out. So Jacobs, let's go and see him. Lamont Marcel Jacobs. And here we see something just clear. Look at that, 2021 standout year. There's the final, 9.8, and it stands as a 9.8. 9.84 goes to a 9.89. 9.85 goes to a 9.9. That was on the 4th of August. So what's that? Olympics final, 4th of August. That's the final. And that's the Olympics final 2024. So look, his best stuff. He saves his best stuff for the Olympics. So, well, for the majors, perhaps 2023. I know he was injured. He suffered injuries, and so something exciting, at least on the psychological level, for Lamont Jacobs is he can perform. He really can perform at the big events, and he has done it. So he doesn't get enough credit for that. So I was surprised to see that. Let's see how old he is. Born 1994, so he's 30. He's 30. From my other studies, 30. Bolt, he retired at 30. Gatlin was just turning the afterburners on for a second. So that was Jacobs. Who else do we need? How could we forget? The Botswanan bullet. I mean, I just invented that. But let's see. Taboho. So look at this. He's another great performer on the stage. World Championships 2023. He gets second. That was behind Lyles. Running 9.88. And it stood as a 9.88. Here he is, the Olympic semi-finals. 9.91 for second place. And then the final, where he gets sixth. Ridiculously, taking sixth with 9.86. Took sixth place with 9.86. Rebased to 9.91. And what's this? This is actually his personal best. So that was 20th July. So that's going into it. That was in London. He got third place. What is that race? That is a fascinating race. That's a race to go and look at. No doubt about it. Because was that Lyles's as well? 20th of July 2024. Wow. So on the 20th of July 2024 in London, that is a race to look at. Okay. Who's next? Who is it? A man who doesn't get enough mention is Bednarek. But do we have him? Yes. Here's Kenneth. So it doesn't show up too much. Obviously, quite a 200-meter specialist. Runs a 9.88 for 7th place. There's a 9.93 rebased. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely wild. What about Lewis? Carl Lewis. Carl Lewis. Really got it done at the majors. Such an amazing athlete. It's interesting. Look at that. What's this one then? 993 in 1984. So maybe that was the American trials. He was running it. Look at that. He ran into a 2.2 meters per second headwind. That's amazing. That is amazing. So, I mean, that just goes to show that was really a 993. I mean, that would have matched the world record at the time. And, yeah, that is really something. And then, of course, this is his personal best. 992 on a rounded basis. 986, it got recorded as a world record. Bailey. Donovan Bailey. I'm going back in time now. But, who have I missed from the 100 meters in Paris? 100 meters Paris. We've done Curly, done Lyles, done Bednarek, done Taboho, done Kishane, done Oblique Seville. Where's this final? Semis. Noah Kishane, Fred Curly. How could I forget him? How could I forget you? Akini. Let's look you up. Let's look you up on the charts and see. I mean, I know you've got so many races as well. Akini. So here's Akini. So his very best is non-championship, but still, I mean, yeah, the Olympic final, 982 for fourth. 982 for fourth. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. And this is the semi-final. 987. So he's in 987, and he ran the same time on a rebase basis. You see that there's a 987 there, which was a 987, and a 982, which was a 987. So he kept his form. He wasn't slower. 2021 fourth. And 2021, 2016 fifth. I mean, yeah, just amazing athlete. So that was Akine. So we've done all of them now. So we'll just do. I'm going to leave on this one. I'm going to leave on these two, Donovan Bailey. Actually, on the three. Actually, I'm going to do Linford Christie as well. These four. So we're going to just do four more. So Donovan Bailey. I always felt that his best in the major tournaments. I reckon he could have done so much better as well. 988. So that was his best. 988. And he could have done better. He could have run in the 9.7s that day. He had wind behind. He had some altitude with him in Atlanta when he did that. World Championship. He got second in the World Championship, did he? Second there. 1997. I mean, there's so many great sprinters. I wanted to do Atto Bolden because he was someone. Yeah, you see, his best was saved for non-championship, and his best there is a 984. He ran a 986 into a slight headwind with a little bit of altitude. Linford Christie. Now Linford, absolute, star performer in the major events. For him, his career, he had the mental fortitude to get it done. He ran a 10-second flat, which would be rounded to a 9.3 in that 100-meter final. He was obviously fighting Burrell. I wanted to end on a couple more. Frank Fredericks. Frank Fredericks looks like this. And of course, Maurice Green. Yeah, I mean, he had his very best here, 1999, non-championship. He was just in such good form that year. 1999, that was the World Championship. That was a 9.8 rounded to a 981. This is the 2000 Olympics, 987 rounded to a 985. It was into a slight headwind in Sydney. Yeah, but fair to say he was a real performer there, real performer. So there we go. I'll leave it there. Some conclusions to be drawn. I'll let you draw them. Thank you.